that's honestly my response to is I don't know how they did this. You can't do it primitive fashion. Like, we literally tried. Like, we've had the Thunderstone is the other.
How would they even do it today?
Hydraulics and diesel power, like huge bar. I mean, I didn't even know. You try to move. I mean, it's like makes newspaper headlines when they shift a load of like 150 tons on a truck somewhere. 1,000 tons these days.
1,500 tons.
1,500 tons. I mean, we have cranes. We have the capability, but it's usually by water on giant. I don't know if we could. How we transport a load like that over anything other than water.
Imagine the wooden boat and how hard those dudes are rowing.
Upriver too.
Not only that, how deep is the water? And when you're dealing with 150 tons, how far does it sink? You know what I'm saying?
Displacement.
Yeah. How much of a boat do you need? And can you fit a boat that wide?
In parts of the Nile you can, but I'll tell you this, and I've looked at this, that you sure as shit can't do it at the quarry. Because this is what they say. You go to the quarry, and this is an example I like to give people all the time. The unfinished obelisk, at the Aswan quarry, it's like 1,200 tons, more or less, like 10 tons off of them. They will tell you that, so there's this low area in the quarry, that's the harbour, where they park the boat to take the stone. I mean, there is no chance that you could put that thing on a boat that even would. It's like. This is not in the realms of possibility for a boat to displace enough water to take a load like that obelisk. It would literally just be this giant clunk. It would just, it just can't happen. And what's more, that quarry, or that harbour in the quarry, that isn't a harbour. That's an extraction. They pulled a fucking block out of there the same size as the obelisk. It's gone. You can see it. I showed. It's an off-limits area to the quarry, but we kind of get in there every time.
So someone somehow pulled that off.
It's already been done, 100%. We know it has because we've got the statues of blocks of that size and tonnage have been successfully transported and shaped. However, in that place they call the quarry in the harbour, it's all scoop marks. It's the same technology, and here's where it gets wild. Is that you can see the extraction that's come out. It's massive, it's basically like the obelisk, the unfinished obelisk. So something like an order of 1,200 to 1,300 tons in a piece got pulled out of there. And in the corner, right up at the end where you see the boxy end of whatever this was taken out, on the wall, there's red ochre painting. It's paintings of like emus or flamingos and some other dolphins and other stuff. And it's an identical match for the art style and paintings that you find on pre-dynastic pottery that comes from the Carter culture and before. It's exactly the same. It's not dynastic Egyptian. It's pre-dynastic artwork. That's been put on the wall. I hope I have pictures of that. I know I do on here. It's actually, I have a video called It's on what I have a video where I look at all this on my channel, but it's the exact same artwork that you see on the vessel. So to me it's an indication of there was these people that were there, are living there in the thousands of years before the dynastic Egyptian civilization rose, were obviously in that quarry, and they found this convenient wall to put some artwork on, and they painted on it, which tells you that this extraction had to happen before that, right? It had to have been taken out before that.
And how far before?
We don't know. Can't date the stone. So. But somebody took a piece like that out of there, 100%, with the same technology, the scoop marks and stuff.
Have you found anything on that, Jamie? Once you get that, let's look at the unknown obelisk too, so to give people a reference point.
Unfinished obelisk?
Yeah, the unfinished obelisk is how many feet?
That is definitely in that other directory. That's the video about the obelisk.
The unfinished obelisk is how long?
Oh god, it's got to be 100 feet long or something like that. It's a 90 feet long, I'm thinking. You'll see it in the picture. It's a giant block. So it's not extracted either. That's what I should say. It is still attached to the bedrock. So they were cutting it out, and then for whatever reason they stopped. But if you assume that the obelisk would have a square section, which means same width as like this, a square section, it would have its mass with the granite there at like 2.7 tons per cubic meter is roughly 1,200 tons.
And did they stop because it was cracked, or did
that's
they
what
not
they say. That's what they say. I don't think so. I don't think that it doesn't. To me, that's hard to say whether it was cracked or not. It was people tried to quarry it after. There wasn't much attempt made to quarry. I don't know why you would, even if it cracked, why not use it? If it's actually if it was done during dynastic Egypt, I mean, you've done all that work. You've cut out the trenches on all of it around. You could cut pieces out of that. It'd take way less work. You want to get a smaller piece of stone for something else? Just cut it. Like you should use it, but that's not what happened.
Unless their technology was so sophisticated that what they wanted was very specific and they could just do it again.
Yeah, and maybe it didn't crack. I think that's an example like you do see on a lot of these sites, like the Serapeum, like the Assyrian, at the quarry, that something happened that meant tools down. Yeah, so here's the painting. This is the pictographs. Those are the paintings, and if you compare that to what's on like the pre-dynastic vases, you'll see exactly the same thing.
Now, so these depictions of flamingos, was it possible to date the paint that they used?
I think you probably could. I don't know if anybody ever has. I'd love to see that done. Yeah, I would love for that to happen. That's a very good point, because it's just there's a few things in Egypt where I'm like, why don't we date that?
Sorry, Jamie, scroll down a little bit. That Scoopy thing. Below that. Yeah, they're right there. What's that?
So that's another piece near in the quarry, and this puts the lie to the stupid pounding stone theory of how they explain this in the mainstream, because these scoop marks they tell you are pounding stones. This is another big piece. This is probably, we guess this piece, it was probably going to be like a smaller seated statue, but still something's maybe 150 tons. And they were cutting this out. So this, you can see, this is the process of like carving out underneath it. Mm-hmm. And so you can get in these trenches, and the scoop marks are crazy though, because they extend basically from the top of the wall, like 15 feet straight down these ridges. They go all along the ground under and then up on the roof side. So if you're pounding, you would have been doing this, pounding up to pound that out. And it's a very sharp turn on the inside. It's the result of some tool. Like,
also, someone's got to be underneath it when it finally cracks loose.
Yep. That would don't want to draw that short straw. Thank you very much. Yeah, we take people down into that area around this block every time. It's great, and there's
very bizarre looking.
And you can grab that stone and whack at it, and just see how little effect you'll have with the meat. You know.
But those stones is that an example of what they are trying to claim was used?
Yes.
How long would that be? So is that the unfinished obelisk?
That is the unfinished obelisk. And
so where is that sucker cracked?
So there's a couple cracks, right? So this is the thing, that there's attempts at quarrying that have been made. I think it's that crack up towards the top, is what they say, how it cracked, but we don't know how.
We don't know if it cracked after the fact either.
It's possible that, like a lot of these places, that it was a tools down situation. Just something happened to stop, whether it's civil unrest, cataclysm.
Right.
And this thing was buried too. Like that's the thing. There was a lot of quarrying that happened after this at higher levels. Like, so this is, you got to imagine when you go to this quarry, it's like they've cut the top off a granite mountain. They've taken so much granite out of there. Huge granite mountain. So to get down to, this sort of high quality granite, which is not surface level granite, you have to go 10, 12, 15 meters into granite to get blocks that are even possible to be this size, or this, one single piece. And in fact, even now, that you can see that, like, all of this has changed. This is not. There's no staircase. All of that gravel up to the north of that has all been moved. We're still clearing the site out, or they are. But when this was first discovered, it was buried in like 7-8 meters of quarry rubble from all of the quarrying that had happened above it and around it, like for thousands of years. The Egyptians, the Romans. Yeah, this was buried.
How'd they know it was there?
Well, so there was like an edge, one little edge piece poking out. What the hell is this? And then it was Howard. It was Flinders Petrie's assistant who actually excavated that site, and he had to like split a bunch of big blocks to even get it out of the way. It took them forever, but they eventually uncovered it all. Yeah.
Wow.
But it was the back end of this, like 7-8 meters of rubble that they had to clear out. I mean, yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it is. And to me, it's like, it's quite plausible. It's a possibility that was there. It was done.
Also quite plausible there's more of that stuff out there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's many more quarries. This is just because that's in the quarry. That's the quarry that's sort of been cleared and made available for tourists. But there's tons of quarries. Like, these are great pictures. That's the dual image. This is when it first popped out. Yeah, so they had this section of it, and they're like, wow, this is something else. But And so what happened with the pounding stones is really interesting because there were thousands of them out on the site, these round stones. However, the vast majority of them were broken. They were split. And God, I'm blanking on the name of the guy who excavated the site. However, he was like, how come these are all broken? And he tried to break them. So he stood up on like 15 feet up, and he's hurling these stones down onto the granite. Bang, bang. He had to do it like 10 times, and eventually he cracks a chip off on them because they're dolerite. They're hard. They are hard as stone. And look, you will eventually create enough dust. Eventually, I mean, it's like there actually have been studies done. Dennis Stocks did a study, and it's the volume. It's basically you remove about, I think it was 2/3 the volume of a golf ball in an hour of pounding. So not a lot.
Not a lot.
Yeah, and if you can imagine, I like to tell people it's like you can only fit like these trenches around this column. It's not like you can put 1,000 dudes in there. They've got to sit in there, so like one person in one spot, then dudes. And so all you have to do is imagine all of that space being filled up with golf balls. Add another third for the, because it's 2/3 a golf ball, and then maybe add another half again to that to account for the negative space between the balls. That's how many hours it would take, which is, I mean, decades of effort. Like it's not remotely possible to do it in any reasonable time frame. People can't. And pounding stones, it's like, come on.
How do you break it free? Like,
Well, that's the issue.
Who's underneath it when they're pounding? Like, how does...
That's what I think these balls were. So I think they're very difficult to break. They've taken away all the broken ones. The only ones on site now are these like little nice rounded ones. And even then, you can't do it from all in cup. You have to kind of let it go and catch it, and your arms would burn out in no time. But I think the reason so many were broken, I think, and you can actually see this in the harbour area, there are these channels that I think they cut under them. You can see the remnants of them where they took the big extraction out. And I suspect what they did was they would shove these balls of dolerite in there, and it would provide them enough movement or just enough support where they could cut the rest of the whatever, scoop out or remove the other attachment points. And then you're also, once you get out of that trench, you can now shift this thing ever so slightly to get whatever you would need to get under it to lift it up out of there. Because that's the other problem with the obelisk, is like it's on an angle, and I mean the trench is going to be, when it's complete, they had only dug down 2/3 as deep as they needed to go. So that trench at its thickest point would have been like 12-15 feet deep down there, and you've got to get under it. So it's on an angle. You have to lift that thing up 15-20 feet up in the air to get it out of the trench, and then somehow move it to get into this rocky, crazy environment, to move it to get it somewhere to then take it wherever else you're taking it. But you'd have to be able to maneuver. So I honestly think those dolerite balls could have been used as primitive ball bearings that were just, that's all they were used for, was to support it while you cut it free. And then a lot of them would have snapped in half under the mass of something like that, which explains why so many of them were broken. Because you ain't broken those things by pounding on them. Like it's just not going to break.
That actually makes sense, that they were used as some sort of a ball bearing.
Yeah.
But even so, even if that's the case, like how, what?
Well, how are you lifting it? What are you doing to lift that obelisk out?
How many people are involved if it's just manual labor?
You cannot fit enough people around that obelisk to even come close. Like you're probably not even to get 10% of the amount of people. Like it's such a rocky, weird. You can't fit that many people around it today. I have no idea how I don't think they were doing this without the expectation that they could get it done. You know what I mean?
But what kind of conventional explanation is this?
There's nothing
for this.
There's not. It's
nothing.
There's nothing.
They just gloss over it. We don't know. They say we don't know.
They don't address the realities of the 1,000-ton stuff. I've not seen anyone address those realities. Well, okay, so they do, and it's like with logistics, they will show you pictures where the Egyptians are moving something that is 100 tons or 150 tons and say, see? Now, that's not how logistics works. So for example, with the statues, we know they scale right up to 1,000 tons or more. There is a picture on a tomb of a guy named Djouti Hotep, and I've got this in the statues directory. I think it's a painting on a wall, and it's a sled with this statue, and there's rows of guys. They've got the imprint of dudes behind dudes, and they're all pulling on a rope. No pulleys again. They didn't have force multipliers. They were just straight pulling, wooden levers, a wooden sled. they're dragging this statue. In the case of this statue, we know about this statue. There's pieces of it left. It was made from alabaster. Calcite's not as heavy as granite. But it probably weighed, the estimate of how much it weighed was 57 tons. Which is quite a load. It's respectable, right? And you can imagine, but with enough labor and on a sled, this is it. This is a 57-ton statue. There's a guy pouring something on the sand or in front of them, so you can count all these dudes and the shadows of the dudes behind them on these ropes. And so there's a figure about it, and there's been papers written about this. There's literally, I think, a Japanese team wrote a paper about what would it take to do this. And okay, this is possible. For 57 tons, with enough people, enough horsepower, you can do it. Now, it's not like that scales up on like a linear increase in difficulty to something that's 1,000 tons. It's more of a logarithmic exponential curve. You cannot take this explanation and apply it to something that's 1,000 tons. It's 20 times as heavy. The friction coefficient goes through the roof. Those sleds would literally just drive into the ground. You can't. You get to. You're in realms of mass where it's like material failure becomes a problem. Wood is no longer sufficient to support that. You cannot. You certainly can't move it up any slopes. You have to do all this ground preparation work to even attempt it, and they move these things like 1,000 kilometers.
If there's a place that you could go back in time and see, that is it. That is it.
Yeah, quarry would be a good one.
God, if you could go back in time just to see construction, I guess quarry. Yeah. But I mean,
pyramids. Yeah.
How are you lifting things? What are you doing? What does your machinery look like? You must have some kind of technology that is just dust in the wind now.
It has to be. Because we've tried this. Like, there's an example. Do you know about the Thunderstone? You heard of this thing?
No.
Okay. So
no, I did hear about this.
Yeah. So in like the 1700s, I think it was, pre-industrial age, well, the early days, but no diesel power, no hydraulics. And this is the Thunderstone. So we did, like in Russia, they moved this thing from Finland to Russia. It's at St. Petersburg. They carved it as they went. It's the base now for, I think, a bronze statue of Peter the Great. But this is how they did it. And so basically you can see the capstans, the twist things these dudes are working on. They're rotating. They would dig these giant holes to anchor these big logs in the ground to then use pulleys and force multipliers with dudes on giant rails. And then they would have these huge big iron rails that they would put on the ground and carry back and forth. And the whole thing was moving on these bronze spheres, these big giant bowling ball sized spheres of bronze. And on a good day, they'd move this thing 150 meters. 450 feet.
Still pretty impressive.
Yeah, but it took them years and years. And then, this thing weighed around 1,500 tons.
It's interesting that using bronze spheres,
brass spheres, I'm sorry.
Whatever, metal spheres, which is very similar to what you're describing with the obelisk.
Right. But there's, again, when you compare the level of technology here to ancient Egypt, there's nothing. They show you what they did with that Djibouti Hotep image. It's a wooden sled, no force multipliers, no capstans, no pulleys, no none of that. Just dudes yanking on a rope. There's no evidence they use pulleys.
Pouring water on the sand to make it slippery.
Milk or whatever, right? Oil. Yeah. Who knows? It's just stupid. You cannot explain it when it took us everything they had for years and years to move that. And by the way, they took that across the Gulf of Finland. And it wasn't on some little river barge either. They built a giant platform, took them a year to build it, and then they had to put warships on either side of it to keep it balanced. It's massive to even plop this thing in the center and hope that they got this thing over to Russia to then move it the rest of the way. So it ain't no barge carrying 1,000 tons down the Nile. No.
That's nuts.
Something happened.
So it's all so fascinating. And something happened is actually the only answer we have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll agree.
Yeah. Ben, you're awesome, man. I really, really appreciate you coming on here. Your channel, Uncharted X, fantastic channel. So much good content. How long have you been doing it now?
I've been doing it. I quit my job 10 years ago, but not. Uncharted X.
God, you had the courage to do that.
It was a big old step. The wife was like, "What are you doing?"
I know, but look, you were right. It worked out.
I am super grateful that it's worked out. And in fact, I want to. Obviously, thank you for the hospitality and the invite. And I genuinely also think. Dude, I've come full circle with this a little bit. What got me into it in the first place, I was always interested, but it wasn't until Graham's who I've gotten to know very well over the years. I love that man. It wasn't until his first appearance on your podcast back in the old days, was it 2011, 2012, something like that?
He was one of the first real guests.
Yeah.
That was just me and Duncan, that one.
You and Duncan? Right.
Yeah.
At your house?
At my house.
Yeah.
That was when I was doing it at my house.
That one
Yeah.
was what really... I mean, after that, I followed him really closely. I went to Peru and Bolivia with him in 2013, and then 2015 I went with him to Egypt. So it's like the fact that I'm here talking to you now, you started me on this, and it's come full circle, so thank you for that. And the fact that you are interested in this topic, I think, is such a boon to everyone else out there that, you know, you get to spread the word, and it's just such a benefit to the whole space. So
Well,
thank you.
I'm so happy that guys like you took that fucking baton and ran with it. But I
It's
mean,
been a wild ride. I love it.
my answer to all this is, who's not? I don't understand you if you're not interested in this. How is this not unbelievably fascinating?
Yeah, 100%. I agree. That's what happened to me. I fell down this pyramid-shaped hole, and I was doing. I mean, I had quite a career before this in the tech world, but I mean, I'd go to conferences and tech events, and the second that we're out in the break room, I'm talking about the Younger Dryas and pyramids and massive statues and all this shit, Graham Hancock, and they're like, "This is really interesting." I'm like, "I know."
It's literally the most interesting thing about civilization. That time period and the mysteries that are involved in trying to just decipher what happened.
Yeah.
It is the most fascinating time in history, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And
Phenomenal.
again, thank you so much.
Thank
for
you,
doing-
Joe.
We'll definitely do this again.
I would love to,
Especially if
anytime.
some more information comes out about the labyrinth, and hopefully more people, you know, are also picking up the baton, and more people get involved.
I see that happening. I'm very glad that it is. I'm thrilled to see other people getting into the field. I don't see any of this as, it's not competition. It's like all it's
Zahi, you can
it's a
say
rising
you found
tide.
it. Zahi,
Yeah,
come on, jump
you
on
can.
board.
Yeah.
You could definitely say you found it. Everybody will agree that you found it.
We didn't talk about the Sphinx and the stuff in the Star Shop, but save that for next
Let's
time.
do it
maybe.
again then.
Yeah.
Definitely do it
Love
again.
to. Yeah,
All right.
I would love to.
Thank you so much. This
Thank
was
you.
awesome.